How to get a 4-speed Harley transmission to stop leaking oil. Never ask a woman about her age, and you never ask a Harley guy about his 4-speed transmission. This here transmission, I've had this bike for 6 years, was absolutely the leakiest transmission you can imagine. This whole side was completely covered in oil. Hey, thanks, man. Nice. Yeah, thank you. Aloha, man. Alrighty. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, all this was covered in oil. All this was caked in oil. Half of this was caked in oil. Half the oil bag. I wish would have taken a picture or something before cleaning it up. Actually, it looked like that. Okay, everything looked like that. The whole B side was just completely freaking black. Okay, and I had this bike for 6 years, and I never could figure out how to get it to stop leaking oil. Okay, I changed the main seal 3 times. Didn't help. Okay, and nobody would help me out. Everybody said that they just leak, and you have to deal with that. So I did some research, and a couple of weeks ago I figured it out, and I fixed it without spending a single dollar. I posted on Reddit explaining how I did it, and this is a bit of a follow-up. As you can see, it's completely dry. It hasn't, not just dry, now I have a different problem with rust. It hasn't leaked a single drop in close to a month now. Yeah, as I said, it cost me nothing. I didn't have to pull it apart, I didn't have to take it off. It was a simple fix, and I'm gonna start from the end and tell you that the key is the sprocket nut right there. Okay, that's the key to fixing it, and I'll go in a little bit more detail explaining why and how that works. Okay, so if you take your clutch, your sprocket and sprocket nut off, you will see something like this. You have your case. Back out. You have your case, your main seal, your spacer, 4th gear. You have your 4th gear and your shaft. This is looking head on. This is looking from the side. Okay, this is the main seal. This is the spacer. This is your 4th gear, and obviously this is your shaft. The shaft runs inside of the 4th gear. There's a little bushing and a seal inside of the 4th gear for the main shaft. This is the way this contraption is assembled. You have the 4th gear right here. It has a little lip right here. It gets a little bit thicker. This is this part right here. The protrusion is this part from the side. Okay, let's say these are the threads for your sprocket nut. And these are the grooves. The grooves for your sprocket to key into the 4th gear. Okay, you have the spacer that slides over, slides over and then sits against this lip right here. And then you have the sprocket, which is pushed against the spacer, and it's pushed against using this sprocket nut. Okay, so let's go through these 4 gaps, potential leaking points, to kind of go down and see which one might be the leak that's bothering you. The outer diameter gap between the case and the main seal, yeah, it's right here. Okay, this is right here. Usually or not usually, sometimes in older transmissions there's also a cork O-ring that goes right here. So you can double up the seals. It stops the oil from going this way. There are no moving parts here, and this is the least likely position place for a major leak. If this is leaking, then you just replace your main seal. Then you have the inner diameter of the main seal. So this right here rotates inside of this, which makes this seal, this gap in the seal, more leaky than the outside gap. But nonetheless, again, if you have a good seal and there's a little spring O-ring there, you have that spring O-ring inside of your seal, this won't leak that much from my personal experience. And if it does, you just change the main seal. This third gap right here is what this video is all about, okay? From my personal experience, this is where all the 4-speed transmissions leak from, and leak a lot. Okay, this is the reason why 4-speed transmissions are notorious for leaking, because you have this gap, and this gap. These 3 gaps all have seals, right? You have, obviously, this and this gap are on the either side of the main seal, so you have rubber here and rubber here. This gap right here has a seal inside of the 4th gear. This seal right here that sits inside of the gear, and as the main shaft goes through the 4th-speed gear, it seals it up right here. This gap has no seals, okay? This is the gap right here. Okay. So you might ask yourself, what the fuck, Harley Davidson? Why did you not put a seal there? Why is this left unguarded? Well, they did put a seal there right here later on, okay? And starting, the 5-speed transmissions and later on you have an O-ring right here. For some reason the 4-speed didn't have that, but Harley Davidson still had something in mind, okay? And this is really the crux of this whole video, is the way you seal this up is, okay, let's get back to this. So you have the lip right here with nice mating surface. You have your spacer with nice mating surface that sits against this, right? And then you have the top of the spacer with nice mating surface, and you have your sprocket with nice mating surface. These 3 parts pushed against each other, they are supposed to form one solid part, essentially. They're all supposed to fuse together. So you have the 4th gear, you have the spacer, the sprocket, and the sprocket nut. Okay, so the sprocket nut is what is generating the force needed to push all these together, like this. Now let's imagine this is your anchor point, and then the force is applied from this side, which is the outside of the sprocket nut. As long as you have force applied this way continuously, these 2 mating surfaces are pushed tightly against each other. Okay, this and this right here. There should be no gaps in there. It should be pushed shut together. The same with this part right here, then the sprocket and a spacer on the top right on top of the spacer. This and this also supposed to be, the sprocket and the spacer are also supposed to be pushed, shut together. And all this is held together by a single nut that needs to continuously apply force in order to keep these three parts, essentially fused together. And this force is stored inside of the, it's stored essentially in the friction in the threads of the knot. Okay, as long as this knot is tight, it continuously is pushing this way. You have no gaps. It's all fused together into one part, and you're good. No leaks. As soon as this force starts to diminish, meaning the knot starts to back out, you start developing gaps right here and right here, right here and right here. Once you have a little gap, doesn't matter how small, even if it's a hairline, tiny little crack, that 10,000ths of an inch or something like that, the oil will get in this space between the spacer and the fourth gear transmission. So sorry, man. In the space between the spacer and the fourth gear, and then it will start moving along this way through here, which this here is this gap, right? And since there are these grooves cut into it and it has threads, like this surface is just very badly sealed. So once the oil gets behind this spacer, it's game over. It's going to come this way, and then if there's a gap here, there's a gap here because it's not all pushed together. So the oil will come out through this gap between the spacer and the sprocket. It will kind of drain down your sprocket and up, because as the sprocket is spinning, the centrifugal force will just kind of push it out, and it gets everywhere. And this doesn't seem like a lot, but like this gap right here can leak so much oil. Like I was filling my transmission out every time I rode it. My tranny was going through like a quart of oil a day probably. This leak is pretty freaking serious, and most people don't understand that these three parts need to be fused together, right? I didn't. I always thought that spacer kind of just sits against this, and this is spinning, and spacer is there just to like hold the seal and space out the sprocket from the fourth gear. But no, the spacer is a crucial part of this contraption that seals up this notorious gap right here. Okay, so obviously this knot needs to stay really tight, okay? And it's the only knot that holds this whole thing together. If this is loose, your transmission is leaking. The looser it is, the more it is leaking. Step number one is this is the bottom side of the your spacer. This surface right here is really nicely machined. It's proper mating surface, okay? If your spacer is scored here, if it's uneven, if it's messed up, you can sand it down with some sandpaper or buy a new one. These spacers are inexpensive. Gotta make sure this surface right here on the lip of the fourth gear is also clean and flat, to make sure it seals properly. Then the inside of the sprocket and the top part of the spacer also need to be clean and flat. Alrighty, so one last part to this whole problem is this thing right here, and this is really the most controversial part of this video, I would say. The lock washer sits like this, and the space between the your sprocket and your sprocket knot. It is there for safety reasons, I would say for liability reasons, because I don't think Harley Davidson wanted this coming out on a highway and leading to the sprocket coming out and like jamming out the chain and killing the rider. So this here thing is there for safety reason. It locks over the sprocket knot and it keeps the knot from completely coming out. But I also believe that this leads to this knot loosening it up, this force diminishing till it reaches 0, which opens up these gaps, which makes 4-speed transmissions leak. Okay, so this is made out of soft metal. It's soft enough to be bended by hand, unlike these parts, which are all hardened steel. So as this part pushes against this part, and this part pushes against this part, and so on, they're all hard parts and they don't distort. And as long as there is stored force in here, they are shot close together. Once you introduce soft metal like this, it might hold out for a while, for a couple of years or X amount of time, but with some time this thing will get crushed and flattened and distorted, and it will get thinner, so which will lead to more play on the knot, which will lead to you're not just getting looser. That's from my opinion. Another thing is this washer is keyed in right here, so as your transmission is spinning, it's constantly doing this, and the stuff is like kind of round anyways. It's not really keyed in solidly, so it's constantly doing this, and this little wibbly wobbly motion breaks this knot loose, in my opinion. And then once it's broken loose a little bit, it's it's easier to just continue loosening it. It doesn't take much for it to continue loosening once it's like broken loose. So this is my take on this. You don't need that thing. The thing is what is causing this leak. Okay, this is a reverse thread. Like it's auto tightening as the shaft is, or the transmission spinning. They're going opposite ways. I just don't see this thing coming out. I used like just absolute shit ton of red Loctite, let it cure, tighten it about a month ago, and it's completely sealed up these gaps. Haven't had a drop of gear oil here dropping. Completely dry, and it went from the leakest transmission in the world to the driest. Again, as I said, I don't believe this is necessary. This thing is so freaking tight, and as even if it's loose, it starts backing out. Your sprocket is still keyed into the shaft, so you just kind of look down, and if you see your sprocket doing this, then you have a loose knot. Just keep checking it. It's not that difficult. So yeah, I think that's the fix for most 4-speed transmissions. I think most people don't understand this, but there are aftermarket parts which will sort of do the same thing. You have your Canadian spacer that has a O-ring that cotton put in right here, which adds like rubber to this gap. Then all your gaps will have rubber. What it does, it once the oil gets behind, this thing can get loose, and once the oil gets behind the spacer and it starts going this way, it will stop it in this gap halfway, from coming out. Okay, and you know, most people stand by that washer, and if it works for you, it's great. I don't hate it. I don't have anything against it. If it works, it works. I just wanted to show people a free way to fix leaking, and it's all part of the transmission. Like, I fix my transmission for free. I don't have to buy anything. I don't have to take it apart. So you could just fix it by tightening this and getting rid of this. It's really up to you. I just wanted to make this video because this is the video I wish I found many moons ago. My transmission has leaked for 6 years, just profusely, insanely, just leaking absolute shit ton of oil. Yeah, the bike was a proper hog, so filthy, and it's finally fixed. Like, it doesn't leak anymore, and I'm happy. And I just want at least one person to benefit from this video and, you know, seal their 4-speed transmission up. And you know, I hope it helps at least one person. I will feel much better about myself, about my, you know, about my life. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If I said something that's really stupid and you disagree with, please leave a comment and let me know. I am open to suggestions. This theory was tested by me and it seems to work. So, you know, I think I'm right about this, but you know, you could always be wrong. Anyways, thanks a lot, and bye-bye.